Hi, my name is Travis Lee. I'm an instructional designer with the University of California. This is a picture of me and my son at a park. I just wanted to kind of give you a point of reference, get to know who I am. I'm really interested in online instruction, specifically around disabilities. This is a picture of me graduating from kindergarten, and I wanted to give you a little bit of background on myself. This is after my first year of education, formal education, and I really struggled. I couldn't read, I couldn't write, and somehow they got me to the first grade. And here's a picture of my son. He's running around, generally very healthy and developing nicely. That's not always the case for a lot of children in this country and throughout the world. And this presentation is going to focus on some of those people. There are many children in this world who face challenges because of their disability. This is a picture of a blind child who hopefully will grow up to have educational opportunities. But this particular child is growing up in Uganda. They don't have the same civil rights and protections around children with disabilities as we do here. And here we see an American child who's lost the use of his legs. He is protected, actually, under a number of laws in this country that give equal rights to people with disabilities, and we're going to go over a few of those laws in the next few slides. People with disabilities historically have been pushed to the sides of society, but through the use of technology, they can now access all the information that mankind has accumulated on the internet. I'm going to go over some of the best practices for making your online content accessible to people with disabilities. We're going to start with the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's an extension to the Civil Rights Act of 1964, actually, and it pretty much extended the same civil rights to people with disabilities. And it was enacted in 1990 by the first George Bush. On top of the ADA, we also have what's called the 508, which guarantees accessible online and electronic content for any agency that's receiving federal funds. So this actually covers quite a bit of different organizations throughout this country. The 504 gives specific rights to students who have disabilities. Here we have the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as WCAG. This is really the holy grail of the information that you're going to need to know about making your online courseware and websites accessible. It gives very specific information and general practices that make your content accessible. Here we see a college student who has a disability but is still performing fine in a lab class. It's likely that she uses assistive technology to use a computer. Just so you know, about 10% of college students do have a disability, but only about 60% of those students actually declare it. Now I'm going to go over the top 10 ways to make your course more accessible. The first one is using image alt tags. Oftentimes, images embedded on web pages do not have alternative text. Alternative text is inside the image tag and describes what a blind person or a screen reader might see on a page. Closed captioning is really important for students who have hard of hearing or are deaf. It's a very much something that could be done on most videos, but you need to keep in mind that captioning costs about $1.50 a minute, so build that into your budget if you're thinking about creating lectures that are going to appear online. When designing, you should really think about how someone who has low vision might be seeing your website. Screen readers really need a lot of help in knowing what they're clicking on. For example, links should be descriptive. Don't just say click here, say click here to download syllabus. 1 out of every 5 men are colorblind. You should keep this in mind when designing. Sometimes the people who are colorblind won't be able to tell the difference between red and green. So use a color contrast checker. There's many available online. You should always be able to magnify the screen, and sometimes third-party products don't allow for screen magnification. The WCAG recommends that all online content should be scalable up to 200%. This helps people who are low vision. We should always have all documentation in OCR format, object character recognition. If you cannot highlight the text on a document, that probably means it's a scanned image. This makes it very difficult for people who are using screen readers to view the documentation. This one is not very common, but you should always make sure that you have no flickering elements on your page. This can cause seizures in some people, so keep in mind that anytime you have a video or an element on the page that flickers, make sure that is not the type of flicker that could cause a seizure. When building a web page, you should be using labels. I oftentimes see web designers use bold and highlight and font size to indicate headers. You should use H tags. This helps people who are using screen readers navigate the web page and know the hierarchy of a site. Oftentimes, people think once the closed captioning is done on a video that the work is done. But this is not always helpful to people who have low vision. You should always provide a printable transcript or a OCR transcript underneath all lecture content. I remember back in the 1990s, a lot of people would use HTML tables to design web pages. This is really out of fashion. Tables should be used, but only used to display data. It's really helpful for people who are using screen readers to be able to see tabulated data. I hope that you've enjoyed my presentation on accessibility for online content. I hope that also that you're going to use some of these tricks and best practices to work on your course site to make them more accessible to students with disabilities.